I find it really interesting that Psalm 1 is where it is in the Bible. That is, that it's the first psalm. It's not a hype psalm. It's not a over-the-top expression of joy and happiness that one might come to expect. Instead, it's a very somber, very sober look at the path that is laid before you. Behold, wisdom and folly put before you, life and death, the broad way and the narrow way, laid out before you right here in this short little psalm that says so much. Verse 1, how blessed is the man who does not walk in the counsel of the wicked, nor stand in the path of sinners, nor sit in the seat of scoffers, but his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law he meditates day and night. He'll be like a tree firmly planted by streams of water, which yields its fruit in its season, and its leaf does not wither. And in whatever he does, he prospers. The wicked are not so, but they are like chaff which the wind drives away. Therefore the wicked will not stand in the judgment, nor sinners in the assembly of the righteous. For the Lord knows the way of the righteous, but the way of the wicked will perish. This first psalm sets the tone from the first verse. How blessed is the man who does not walk in the counsel of the wicked. To be blessed would be to be supremely happy or fulfilled, to be especially favored by God. Quite often, let's be real, we don't feel that way. I don't feel especially blessed much of the time. I don't see the kind of blessings that I want. And that helps me rewind in all of this in my thinking to renew my mind with proper thoughts from God as to what it is to be blessed. I think that my mind drifts towards a selfish, tiny little worldview that imagines that blessing only comes in one category, that it only comes in, or at least in a limited framework of categories. And all those things would mean that life has to go my way. If I'm really favored by God, then that would mean that I need to have an easy life. But if I actually walk in the counsel of God, not in the counsel of the wicked, of the world, I don't see that memo being passed down to God's people. I find that instead, if you want to live righteously, you're going to encounter persecution. I find that Moses encountered constant trials, didn't he? Joseph and so many others, so many saints, the prophets, those of whom the world was not worthy. And then, of course, we look at the life of Christ. He didn't have an easy life, but he was supremely blessed of God to be equipped to handle the trials that were in front of him. Was more important than to have an easy life. Who has there been in world history even who has done great things, who had an easy life? I can't think of anybody. Instead, what we find is those who are going to be prepared are going to have to walk through many trials. They're going to have to step through many problems. And that doesn't mean that they haven't been blessed of God. It might mean that our perspective, my perspective of blessing is rather skewed. And that's because I have spent too much time walking in the counsel of the wicked. Now, how is it that I do that? Well, one of the simple ways I do that is that I read the news too much. I pay attention to political types. I pay too much attention to athletes and celebrities and other people whose opinions are not congruent, not in the same lane as God. And in that sense, I tend to walk in their counsel. Now, on a much more common level, rather than just drawing from influencing people on the outside of me, there are all kinds of friendships that I make in life that I hear them talk, I hear their jokes, I hear the things that they are aspiring to in life, what they're hoping to achieve. And that is a subtle way for me to walk in their worldview. And that's what this is really showing us here. There's a contrast of worldviews. The wicked have one particular way of viewing life and its trials, life and its blessings. And God has a different one. But the one who is blessed of God rejects all of that. So it's interesting here too that a man of God, a true righteous individual, is defined here right away by that which he rejects. He rejects the counsel of the wicked. He didn't want that. Don't want that in his ears. Doesn't want that filling up his mind. Going further, intensifying, he says, nor stand in the path of sinners. He's not willing to allow the wicked to come into his counsel. That is when he's weighing out his decisions. He's not willing to allow them in. Allow them to be his inner counselors, inner circle. And he's not willing to stand. This would be the illustration here. It seems to be rather obvious that as you're walking along the way, let's say you're walking down the hallway like you might have back in high school, and you're not walking and listening to the chatter of the godless as they go through life and the things that they talk about, the jokes that they share, and all of the things that come with that. Nor is he then willing to stop and ponder it a little bit further. The righteous is not willing to walk with them, nor stop and then kind of further ponder what they are advertising. And then finally he says, nor sit in the seat of scoffers. So we see this downward progression. Sin is always like that. You're not content to just walk in that counsel, to kind of reside in that worldview in the way it views life. But then you stop and you consider their way. And you start to think, well, they got some merit to what they're saying. And it's not that far off. It's got some things I could glean and pull into Christianity. And then to sit down here would be more to kind of take up fellowship with them. So again, the illustration is the kid walking down the hallway at high school, and as he's walking, he has now listened to the counsel of the wicked as he's going. Then he stops and considers what they're saying, and then he goes out to eat lunch with them. He goes and he sits down with them and breaks bread together with them. The righteous are defined by their rejection of that. I think it's very compelling than the advertisement that he swings to than on the other side. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law he meditates day and night. So in contrast to walking, standing, and sitting in this worldview of the wicked, our man here, our righteous person, fights that temptation with pleasure. The pressure of the world and its confinement and its desire to conform us to its image, we fight that with delight. What is truly your delight? Here, the righteous delights in the Word of God, knowing it, digesting it, meditating on it, stewing on it, muttering it. Wherever you're going, it's kind of rolling around in your brain. It is the Word of God is the righteous person's preoccupation. It stays with them. How do I fight this peer pressure, this cultural pressure that's pushing in on me to make me in its mold? I fight that with understanding the joy of the fellowship that I have with God when I'm residing and abiding in His Word. I cultivate those delights, though. My natural man, that carnality within me, does not crave righteousness. But there is that part of me that's been redeemed, that's been regenerated, that loves the light and loves the Word and wants to be in it, wants to have my mind cleaned up. And I find joy in seeing that progression even. And it's real easy to get depressed when you're looking at yourself. I've made the mistake of watching even some of these videos, these Thursday night videos, and it's so depressing. You think you're better than you are. You'd love to be more persuasive and communicate better and all that stuff, and you start to look at yourself a lot, and man, it's depressing. You start to see how off you are in so many ways. But the solution isn't to stare at your own life. The solution for growth and to find your delight in the law is to look at God. Look at Him through His Word. Gaze upon Christ and find delight. It's not fixing our eyes upon ourselves, no, but upon the author and perfecter, our trailblazer of faith, Christ. There we find delight. So get your eyes off of yourself. Consider what it is that you're willing to embrace, what kind of worldview you're ingesting, and that you're allowing into your inner thoughts, into your inner counsel. Consider if you are stopping and residing in those thoughts, letting them stew and wreck your world, get you anxious. Consider if you have sat down with the scoffers and mocked even the things of God at times. This is a pretty straightforward psalm. I'm stopping here and I want to pick it up the next time I do this. I hope you'll be able to join me. But thank you for being with me this time. I'll see you.